Hello and welcome back to the Avoid the Tyrewall podcast. Today we are joined by very special guest Nadine Lewis. Nadine, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Hi, yes. So my name's Nadine Lewis. I'm the National Chair of the British Motorsport Marshals Club, and I'm an active volunteer marshal at motorsport events around the country.
How did you initially get into motorsports?
So I used to watch Formula One with my dad on the telly. He used to work away during the week, come home weekends and Sundays sit in front of the telly watching Formula One, and I guess sitting with him, that was the only time I got to spend with him, so got into motorsport that way.
My dad got me into F1 as well. So how did you become a marshal initially?
So a friend of mine actually heard it being talked about on local radio. So she was also into Formula One. We'd been to spectate at Formula One a couple of times together. And then she just heard them talking about marshalling at local circuit to us, which is Alton Park in Cheshire. And just saying about how to become a volunteer, and you could go along and try a taster day. So that's what I did. I went along, did a taster day at Alton Park, had a TBR Tuscan land at my feet on my first day, and that was it. I was hooked. I was like, I want to come back. When can I do this again? This is brilliant.
That's quite similar to me, because obviously we met at Alton. What's the worst thing that you've had to deal with at a race?
Probably the weather and being stood outside during a really boring race with like 5 cars when it's raining is just not fun. It's I'm not there to see lots of accidents, but it's much more interesting when there's a lot more cars and there's more overtaking and there's things going on. But the worst is just being stood there when the weather's dreadful and the racing's awful. Is just, you kind of wonder why you're there.
So is being the head of the BMMC your full-time job, or do you have like a regular day job?
I have a day job. The chair of the BMMC is a purely voluntary position. So I fit that around my day job. My day job is I'm a logistics and warehouse manager for a food company. So I'm responsible for shipping product from our manufacturing site in North Wales across Europe, Middle East, and have a similar facility that I'm responsible for in Italy as well.
Do the people at your work know what you do with marshalling?
Yes, I tell them lots. It's normally a case of they don't now ask me what I'm doing at the weekend. They now ask me where I'm going, because they know I'm going to be involved in motorsport somehow, somewhere. And it's more an unusual response when I say, actually, I've got nothing planned, and they kind of all are really surprised, because it's normally I'm at Donington or I'm at Silverstone or I'm at Alton or doing something to do with motorsport. So yes, everywhere I've worked, they've all known what I do during the weekend.
My friends have sort of given up with asking about the podcast, because I'm just like, oh, well, we're not filming, or I'm making this many Instagram posts. So what does your role as the head of the marshalling involve?
So as head of the BMMC, I'm responsible for our direction as a club, working with the other national officers and all of the volunteers and all of our members. So just shy of 2,500 members we've got as a club. So making sure that they have everything that they need to go marshalling. So they know how to volunteer, they know where to get training, they know how to gain experience, and making sure that we're communicating all of that. So basically that is our role as a club. And then on top of that is representing the club at events, but also with Motorsport UK on their committees. So I sit on various committees with Motorsport UK, which decides rules and regulations of how the sport will look going forward. And from my perspective, making sure that the volunteers are absolutely key to everything that gets discussed.
When I went to Alton Park, I didn't generally realise how many marshals there were that were involved. Like, I walked into the cafe area and was like, don't want to even say how many there were, but there was lots of people involved.
Yeah, yes, there are.
So how many marshals are there for like a standard race?
I would say it varies. There's a rule in the regulations that say there must be an adequate number of marshals to run an event, but it doesn't say how many that actually refers to. So we'd like to think that there's enough to do all the roles that need to be covered, and to do that in a safe environment. So the more people we have, the better it is that we can maybe put 2 people in a particular area rather than having somebody on their own, and having a group of people put together on a particular post so that they could try and move a car, rather than relying on a recovery truck, which would involve a safety car or a session stop, which obviously the organisers don't want to happen. So the more people we can have, the more chance we've got of actually keeping events going. So I'd say at a standard meeting, so a standard meeting at Alton Park, we've probably got about 150, 200 marshals across all the different disciplines.
I was talking to one of the other marshals when I was there, and he said that loads and loads of people would want to do the touring cars or the British GT because obviously, like, they are widely broadcast, so everyone knows about them. And he was like, sometimes it's just chaos.
They can sometimes seem like there's too many people. I wouldn't say we've ever reached that point where we've had too many. I would say we've come close. A few years ago I did tot up the numbers, and it did seem a crazy amount of people we had there, but it becomes then maybe a little unsafe that you have too many people and falling over each other, but for most other events and touring cars, not so much now. Obviously it's televised, it's the ones that people know about, but I would say some of the racing with the non-professional, the non-elite drivers is sometimes just as good, and is a great way to then see racing from a non-professional perspective, so you can then access all areas a lot easier. There's not so big a crowd, you've got the chance to move around and go and speak to the drivers because they're just sat in their awnings with their cars, whereas obviously the bigger meetings, then it becomes you're part of that big crowd of spectators who are also there trying to get about and trying to move around. So from that perspective, it's both worlds really. It depends what floats your boat as to what kind of racing you want to watch, and obviously the impact of having a big spectator crowd is different to having a small crowd watching a smaller event.
I just thought of something to say and I forgot. Oh yeah, I've noticed like the touring cars, and like, so obviously you have the feeder series, so the Ginettas, the GB4, GB3 with not touring cars, GTs with the British F4 and all that jazz. They're a lot more approachable because obviously they are still sort of professional racing drivers, but they're lower level, so you can just wander up to them and be like, hi. I think it seems more close knit with like the non-professional,
I think so, because a lot of drivers, they kind of find their niche, they decide what they want to do, they have a day job like me, so during the week they're earning money so that they can go racing at a weekend, and then they find what they want to do. They decide that they always want to be in single seaters or tin tops, and then they may stick to a series for a number of years, and therefore they get to know the other drivers, and it's a community. So somebody has an issue with their car, they haven't got a spare part but somebody else has, and they kind of go, well, here you go, I'll help you fit it. And they all work together because they're all in the same boat. They all will go back to work on Monday, and they'll all fix the car during the week on evening so that it's ready to go racing next weekend. So they'll all be there to help each other out. If somebody's on their own, if they're a driver who's the mechanic as well, and they just need somebody to hold something or pass them something, then they're normally there together and help each other out, definitely.
Which is the best track to marshal at, do you think?
It's a difficult one because I guess I have my favourites, but I guess it comes down to what the event is. So it's not necessarily just the location, it's the event itself. So one of my favourite events is Goodwood Revival. And obviously it only runs the revival and it runs the members meeting earlier in the year, and it's an awful long way away from where I live, but it's a fantastic event, and to be part of that spectacular event is just something else. So I guess from a favourites perspective, it's more the events than the venue. I do have a soft spot for Alton Park. It is my local circuit, so of course it is the first one I marshalled at, so of course I have a soft spot there as well. But others have great points to them as well. So I quite regularly go to Donington. You get different events at Donington that don't happen at Alton. Alton's restricted in that it tends to only run single day events, so on a Saturday. For some of the bigger events it does run on a Sunday as well, but can only run for half a day, so from lunchtime onwards, because of the noise restrictions, whereas Donington doesn't have that, so it can have 2 days of a particular event that just wouldn't come to Alton. So I go to Donington for some of those events. I also go to Cadwell Park, which is like tiny little circuit, but absolutely fantastic close racing you get through Cadwell Park, and is close to my parents, so I get free accommodation, so that's quite useful. And Anglesey again is a couple of hours down the road from me, but another venue that they revamped. They spent an awful lot of money reconfiguring that entire circuit, and now there's some great racing that happens up there. It's just a long way to go to for some people, but it tends to be again a weekend event, so it's worthwhile going for 2 days.
Don't they do trucks at Donington and not at Alton?
Do. Correct. And I've never done trucks, but I'm going to go do the trucks this year for the first time. So yes, that's another one. So one that I wouldn't get to do at Alton.
It looks like absolute carnage, honestly.
Yeah, it's one of those where the marshals go and stand in the spectator area because you just don't stand trackside when the trucks go around at all. So it would be different. It would be a different experience. So I'm looking forward to that.
So which is your least favourite track that you've worked at?
I don't think I've got a least favourite, because I've not been to all. So there's some I probably can't even comment on because I've not actually marshalled at every circuit in the country. And I guess in some ways Goodwood also has its bad points because it's so far away. It's such a long distance to get to for me that it's one of those that I always make the effort to go, but it means an effort to get there. But I don't think anywhere's got particularly bad points. There's maybe parts of different circuits that I'm least likely, if I end up on that particular post, I kind of think, okay, it'll be an okay weekend, but it won't maybe be the best weekend. But it's down to who you're with on post, and making the most of whatever is happening out on the circuit. So if I have a quiet weekend and nothing happens and I just get to watch some racing, that's quite nice sometimes, rather than being too busy. So I guess it's not so necessarily the venue itself, it's just certain points on certain venues that are less favourable, shall we say.
Do you have to self-fund going to races, or do Motorsport UK or the BMMC pay for it?
It's all self-funded, it's all voluntary, so it's whatever you can afford. So obviously currently it's not cheap to go anywhere at all, let alone go motor racing as well. So a lot of people I know are sticking to venues close at hand, rather than travelling further afield because of the cost of fuel. In terms of what you want to do when you get there, so a lot of people will camp. We're, as marshals, we're allowed to camp at venues, and we're not charged for that. So if you've got a tent or you've got a caravan, great, you can just turn up and you're good to go. I'm not great in a tent, so I tend to be in a B&B or something nowadays, but I've done my time in a tent. But yes, it's all self-funded, so it's up to you where you want to go and what you can afford, and what you get involved in. And you might get donations from clubs. So sometimes clubs run raffles. They may give out vouchers. They may have different ways of giving you different things. So they may pay for breakfast for you, or they may buy you a drink in the bar at the end of the day or something. So it's not necessarily we're getting payment either to do things, but we might have contribution to our activities as well.
Yeah, when we were at Alton, we got drinks vouchers.
Okay, there you go. Yeah,
that was quite a nice touch. I think it's quite like, it's not fulfilling, but like it's nice.
Nice way to finish the day is to everybody meet in the bar for a drink.
Obviously, with social media and stuff, there is quite a big divide with like, you only watch Formula One because blah 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 has good looking, or oh, you clearly are a Lando fangirl or Drive to Survive fan, and be the dynamic that female fans are ruining the sport. But do you think that as marshals, men and women are treated equally?
Absolutely. I would say that there's no role that you can't do because you're female, or you have to do because you're male. So it's down to you what you want to get involved in, what you prefer to be active in. And certainly I've not seen any kind of discrimination against me being female. I've just been welcomed into the team, seen as another pair of hands, seen as somebody else who can do things, and then developed as I've gone along into the areas that I want to concentrate on. But it's entirely up to an individual what you want to do and where you want to go, and there's certainly no barriers to stop you doing that as well.
Obviously, because of the podcast, I get quite a bit of social media traffic, and there are just occasional comment like, oh my god, you clearly only watch F1 because you like Lando. It's like, shush, just shush. It's not appreciated, those kind of comments.
No, absolutely not. Although I do like Lando, he is very nice. I've met him a few times.
Linking to meeting drivers, who's the most famous person you've ever met, like doing racing?
Well, I've met a few. I guess Lando obviously is now famous, and I met him before he was famous. So I met him when he was in Ginetta Juniors. I've met Lewis Hamilton. Going back, I've met Jenson Button, Rubens Barrichello, Giancarlo Fisichella, and further still, who are still around, people like Martin Brundle, Derek Warwick, Martin's son Alex, who also races quite a bit as well. So yeah, I've met a few people.
Have you ever been a racing driver?
No, not at all. I've been to one of the days that you can go and try. So I've been out in there were BMWs at the time that they would take us around the circuit in, and then out in a single seat around Alton Park. So I have done that. So I have attempted to get the racing lines around the circuit, but failed quite miserably and not gone particularly quickly. But no, I'm not one for going fast, to be perfectly honest. So I think I'd probably scream all the way around if I was in a race event as well. I watch videos of cars, onboard footage, and the driver doesn't make a sound, and there's all chaos going around them, and I'm like, I would be screaming in the car if that happened to me. So it's not something I've considered. It's not something that I would want to do.
Honestly, I would have loved to have been a racing driver, but I'm not a multi-millionaire, so
I was going to say I haven't got the talent. That's my excuse. Regardless of anything else, I definitely don't have the talent for it.
I can't drive, so
oh, okay, so that might be a problem.
Have you ever had a passenger lap with a well-known driver?
I have had passenger laps, not necessarily with very well-known drivers. So an individual called Mike Newton, he has raced at Le Mans. He is local to Alton Park, and he's actually one of our club's vice presidents. He used to marshal years ago, and then he got into racing, and he has taken me around Alton Park in an endurance car, which was quite amazing. And I don't think I could walk for about 5-10 minutes afterwards. My legs were like jelly completely afterwards. But yeah, so not anybody mega famous, but somebody who knows what he's doing, that's for sure.
Is there an incident that you've witnessed or attended that stayed with you over time?
I guess lots of different incidents have happened, and for different reasons I remember them. One in particular, I remember it was a Caterham race, and I think there were about 34 cars in it. It was definitely a full grid, I remember that. And I was at the Knickerbrook chicane at Alton Park, and they came into view on their first racing lap. They came over Hilltop towards the chicane, and I'm not sure, it was probably about 6th or 7th place, managed to spin in the middle of the chicane. And I think we all held our breath, because it was one of those, it's like, if he avoids being hit, this is going to be quite amazing, really, because the whole pack coming through. And sure enough, somebody managed to hit him head on. So he was facing the wrong way and the other car hit him head on. So two very badly damaged cars in the middle of the chicane. I got my team together. We went and dealt with it. We got recovery truck. We got it moved under a safety car within a lap and a half. We'd got it cleared up, all out of the way. Everything, rubbish cleared up, dressed the oil on the track, the lot done in a lap and a half. So fantastic that we'd done it all. We all retake our position so they can restart the race. And I had somebody who was there on her very first day. So she was there on taster day. And I said, end of the race, we'll have a bit of a debrief, we'll have a chat so that everybody, but the race is obviously now going to carry on. So we've got to pay attention to the race. So end of the race, got everybody together just to say, fantastic job. We did brilliantly. Everybody played their part. Everybody did what they needed to do and we got it done. And we've had a thank you from race control for sorting it out so quickly. Any questions? And she said, I have no idea what happened. She said, I really don't know what happened. It was all a bit of a blur. And people were doing things. And she said, I felt like I should be doing things and didn't know what to do. And I said, that is just a perfect learning point that you're not expected to know on your first day, that as you come towards an incident, you probably need to pick up a brush. If there's a brush leaning up against the box, if there's been that big an incident, you need to pick one up. And the two people who came from that direction, they picked up the brushes on the way. They just knew there was going to be that much mess. They would have to bring the brushes with them. So a very little thing. But as she said, I didn't even think about the brushes. I said, yeah, but next time you will. So next time you'll go, oh, probably need a brush. I'll take one just in case. Somebody else took a fire extinguisher because they knew that was in their head to say, well, something could happen because two cars have collided and there's now oil and debris and everything all over the place and they're hot cars. I'll take a fire extinguisher. I said, and you'll know that next time. So I said, it's all learning. So from your first incident where you don't quite know exactly what happened, but miraculously we managed to clear it all up. But you'll learn so much from it and you'll remember next time. So I guess it sticks in my head because it was brilliant to train somebody and show somebody how things can work really well because everybody knew what to do.
Do you need any qualifications to be a marshal?
Not at all. So we run training courses around the country, and not just the BMMC, but other clubs as well run training events around the country, normally at the beginning of the year, so just outside the off season. And they're free to attend, so that gives everybody the opportunity to learn new skills and put them into practice, hopefully not too often, like fire practicals. We don't really want too many fires, but gives you the opportunity to learn those new skills. Even if you never use them in a marshalling situation, you might actually benefit from it in some other situation. I know people who've helped out at accidents on the road because they felt they could help and they could do something because they'd had some basic first aid training, but at least some kind of training, and they felt that they actually could do something to help. So not had to use it marshalling, but had use it somewhere else. So no pre-qualifications or anything required. There is now some training online modules that have been created by Motorsport UK, who are the governing body of motorsport in this country, and they're really fairly straightforward online training modules, which just gives people an overview of different aspects of marshalling, and that's a good place to start. So you can do those training modules before you go marshalling, or once you've started being for a taster day, you can then do those online modules as well. The only thing I would say is if you want to progress, so if you want to do other events, if you want to do bigger events, if you want to get to F1, if you want to go abroad, then you do have to attend those training courses and you have to have so much experience in order to qualify for those kind of events. But there's no pre-qualification really required.
What's the coolest thing that marshalling has allowed you to do?
Well, I have to say it's something that I never thought would happen and was sprung on me very recently, completely out of the blue. I got a phone call to say, we'd like you to come to Silverstone and present a trophy on the Formula One podium at the Grand Prix this year. to which I did very silently scream out loud that this was just such an amazing opportunity, and it's purely as a consequence of my marshalling and being chair of the BMMC. I got asked to do it, so I'd say that that's kind of cool that I got to be on the podium with Carlos Sainz, Sergio Perez and Lewis Hamilton, and present Sergio with his second place trophy. So only a few weeks ago, and it's still I still have to pinch myself that actually happened. I can't say that anybody else will ever do that, but hopefully we've set a precedent, because that is the first time that's ever been done in Formula One history.
I saw it on the Facebook and was just like, that's cool.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool.
So it's 9 questions, and then you have to name a track. There's a leaderboard, and the highest is 9. The lowest is 2, I want to say.
Oh dear. I'll see if I can beat 2 then.
What is Sir Stirling Moss regarded as?
What is he regarded as?
Yeah.
One of the all-time great drivers, I would suggest.
If you add a little bit more to do with the championship and something that he didn't do with the championship, then got it.
Okay, he didn't win, that he never won.
Who holds the record for the most amount of time between race wins?
Oh gosh. Yeah, my knowledge isn't that great actually. I don't know. I don't even know if that's modern era or old or anything. So Sebastian Vettel, I've no clue.
Riccardo Patrese, 2,402 days between the 1983 South African Grand Prix and Imola 1990.
Okay, wow, okay.
How many father-son duos have won an F1 title?
2?
Yep. And can you name the duos?
Well, Graham and Damon Hill, and I can't think of the other.
Drove for Mercedes, is the young one did.
Nico Rosberg then, and Keke.
Yep. Correct. How long is the Nürburgring Nordschleife?
Oh gosh, too long. I don't know. It's 11 miles or something.
14.2.
Okay. Yeah.
What team was Jenson Button driving for when he won his title in 2009?
BAR Honda. Was he not?
It was like a bright yellow livery, like white and black and bright yellow.
I don't know. I thought it was BAR.
Braun GP.
Oh, okay. Right. Okay. Yeah.
2. 3.
It's the same car. It just got renamed and became a different company about 4 times.
Which 3 races make up the Triple Crown of Motorsport?
I think it's Indianapolis, Le Mans, I would say, and maybe Monaco.
Yep, correct. Do you know who the only driver to ever win it was?
Was it Nigel Mansell?
It was Graham Hill.
Oh, it was Graham. Okay.
How many motor racing circuits, current and former, are there in the UK?
Oh my word. Racing circuits. Probably 20. 21.
Approximately 26.
Okay. I can.
Which one do you think it is? Which track?
Which track?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
If you want to see it again. Oh, there we go.
I don't think that'll help seeing it again. I'll know it as soon as you say it, but I can't remember which that one is.
Azerbaijan.
Oh, I should know because my husband's marshalled there, but I haven't. He marshalled the very first Grand Prix that was there.
It's my favourite Grand Prix. You got 5. which is actually quite good.
Okay, so not too bad. That's about average then. That's fine. I can manage that.
Thank you for watching this week's episode of the Avoid the Tyrewall podcast, and thank you to Nadine for agreeing to do this interview. See you next week. Bye.